Over the past few weeks, there's been a lot of conflicting reports regarding James Gunn's future at Warner Brothers, with some suggesting that if Paramount were to buy Warner Brothers, they'd immediately fire him, and others claiming that Gunn's job is secure no matter what. And along with other reports we've been hearing about DC projects like Supergirl going through reshoots and the Lanterns series being delayed, a lot of things certainly seem up in the air right now, which is why in this video, I'm going to be creating some order here within all the chaos, and I will explain why I think that James Gunn is still very worried about losing his job, and how, in my opinion, Gunn is taking desperate measures to try and save it, in spite of what you may have heard from the mainstream media. I will also touch upon some new developments, like Netflix looking more seriously at buying Warner Brothers than before, and how that could impact Gunn, and even create an opportunity for Zack Snyder to return with his DCEU. Now, before we begin, I do have a request. For a few months now, I've been early to report on many DCU stories, often well before they were reported by both the mainstream media and even independent media. And if you've been enjoying my videos, but you haven't yet subscribed, please take a second to do that now, as that type of support would really help an independent entertainment news reporter like myself. One of the reasons some people have been claiming that Gunn's position is safe, even if Paramount buys Warner Brothers, is because Bloomberg published an article this week suggesting that any company takeover wouldn't lead to any immediate changes in Warner Brothers' creative leadership. The only catch is that Bloomberg's article is very general and doesn't even specifically mention Gunn at all, let alone address his status. Not that his omission from the article has stopped all the usual shill media outlets to start running interference for James Gunn, pretty much reporting in unison that he's staying forever no matter what, which is complete nonsense. If Gunn's position were safe, he wouldn't have gone on a blitz of shill media interviews lately, where he keeps babbling about all of his future plans and teasing a bunch of new projects that may or may not ever happen. I mean, how else do you explain Gunn's timing here? Because according to YouTuber Charlie Schneider of Emergency Awesome, right before Warner Brothers officially announced to the press that the company was indeed for sale, James Gunn had reached out to several YouTubers, Schneider included, requesting to be interviewed about his future DCU plans. So just to be clear, these YouTubers didn't reach out to Gunn, Gunn reached out to them. And why exactly was the timing so important to Gunn? Superman was already a distant memory, Peacemaker was watched by a handful of people that have already pretty much forgotten about it, and Creature Commandos was a complete failure. So I think the only reason James Gunn could have had to pop up on all these random shill YouTube channels is really just to do some PR damage control, and because he knows he's in the hot seat, which he himself even let slip in that Boba Talks interview.
You know, whether or not that'll be me that's able to fulfill that promise depends on a lot of things in life.
And for me, the kicker was when I saw John Campea suddenly weigh in on the matter. I mean, if you like John Campea, that's perfectly fine, but in my opinion, Campea is the ultimate shill. The exact guy that always seems to appear at the exact moment some shill narrative needs to be peddled, this time talking about James Gunn's job security. The same James Gunn that Campea seems to have an existing rapport with. Campea in a recent video tried to claim that Gunn's job was safe because Campea had personally reached out to Paramount and they had assured him that Gunn would never be fired.
I know a couple people over at Paramount, and I specifically and directly asked, does that include James Gunn and Peter Safran? To which they gave me a simple response. Yes.
And for those who may not recall, a few months ago, when I explained early on that Superman was a flop, Campea was one of the first to come out and sell some kind of narrative that Superman was this huge box office success, and his reasoning for that argument was that once he had worked at AMC as an intern, and that made him a box office expert. Of course, eventually the truth always comes out, and after Forbes had finally admitted that Superman had indeed lost money about 3 months after I said it, we no longer hear Campea talking much about his expertise in the box office. And for me, there's a rule of thumb. When so many shills push what seems like a well-orchestrated narrative all pretty much at the same time, it usually isn't a coincidence. Another development that probably has Gunn on his toes is what happened recently with Taylor Sheridan at Paramount. For those who are not familiar, Taylor Sheridan is the creator, producer, and often writer of Paramount's hit shows like Yellowstone and its spin-offs, Landman, Tulsa King, and more. Basically, for For the past several years, Sheridan had been considered Paramount's golden goose, and after David Ellison led the purchase of Paramount, he had scheduled a meeting with Sheridan. But after their meeting, Ellison had decided that he didn't like the cut of his jib, and he decided not to renew Sheridan's contract when it expires in 2028. Now keep in mind that Sheridan is the guy that has actually delivered real results for Paramount and has made real money for them. And now, they're essentially getting rid of him just because Ellison didn't seem to like him. Now think about James Gunn. He hasn't made Warner any money at all, and his contract ends in less than a year. Even if Ellison buys Warner Brothers in the coming months and then does nothing, James Gunn would still likely be gone in less than a year without Ellison ever even lifting a finger. And with that understanding, I think James Gunn is trying to do anything possible to cling to his seat. His announcement of Man of Tomorrow in 2027 is beyond his current contract, so that could potentially be a maneuver to try to stay in the picture. And Gunn seems to be scrambling now with other projects he's in charge of too. Supergirl, which James Gunn is producing, has to be a major box office hit, like $1 billion worldwide, and I think that until now, it hasn't been shaping up to be as good as the studio had hoped. That's probably why Gunn is now doing reshoots with David Corenswet's Superman, likely getting a more significant role in hopes of improving it. It could also be Gunn's way of connecting all of his projects and keeping them all relevant so that any new owners won't cancel his Man of Tomorrow movie before it even gets off the ground. And that's likely the same reason Gunn keeps talking about all the drafts he's written for that movie at any chance he's given. In addition, Gunn is likely hoping that if his projects keep getting mentioned in the press and shill media, even if he himself is planting these stories, it will somehow shield them from cancellation. And the final piece of the puzzle seems to be Lanterns, a series that was supposed to come out in early 2026, but now it's coming out in late 2026, conveniently right before Gunn's contract expires. If I had to give my 2 cents on this, either Gunn thinks Lanterns is legitimately good and he thinks that airing it close to his contract renewal will help him get that extension, or he thinks that it's a dud and that he needs time to fix it. But whatever the case may be, based on everything we've seen, Gunn is not behaving like a guy that seems confident in his position. And Gunn feeling uneasy would likely still happen even if Warner Brothers wasn't up for sale at all. After all, Warner Brothers CEO David Zaslav has already renewed the contracts for Mike DeLuca and Pam Abby, who serve as the co-CEOs of Warner Brothers, after they made him money this year, but I didn't see him renew Gunn. So I gather that Gunn didn't make the kind of money that Zaslav was hoping for, just as I had been reporting on this channel for a very long time. And even if, let's say, Netflix, who are now growing as a more serious candidate, even if they end up buying Warner Brothers, we don't know that they'll want to keep Gunn. In fact, some people are now saying that Zack Snyder, who already has an existing relationship with Netflix, could be given an opportunity to make more DCEU movies if Netflix should buy Warner Brothers. And that could also possibly happen if Paramount take control. And while I think that Snyder's odds have certainly gone up in recent months when it comes to possibly returning in some kind of way, shape, or form, I say in every video that we're not there yet because it's too early to say, but that's probably why Snyder is doing all of these cleverly timed Instagram posts these days, drumming up hype from his own fan base, which seems to be working pretty well. If nothing else though, I can say that Snyder is a guy that's already seen a number of different regime changes at Warner Brothers over the years, and he knows to sniff out an opportunity when he sees it, and I think that he has realized that Gunn's position is much weaker now than it's ever been, and Snyder is absolutely pouncing on this opportunity. And he's doing it rather well. I mean, just the other day he posted another one of those Batman photos and got a lot of social media interaction about it. You also have comic book legend Chuck Dixon recently say that he also thinks that James Gunn is on his way out, which does have at least some meaning, even though I think that he's speculating as well. But if you wanted me to guess at this moment in time based on the information I have, what I think is going to happen, I do feel like whoever is going to possibly buy Warner Brothers may very well let James Gunn stay until the end of his contract. A lot of times, in order to break a contract, you have to pay some big penalty, but if the contract is ending anyways, and James Gunn isn't producing good results, it could be just an easy way to get rid of him without really doing much. And if you ask me, that's exactly what James Gunn is worried about, and that's why he keeps running around trying to hype his DCU. And if you want to continue to get the type of analysis that I give here on this channel, please make sure to like and subscribe, as it would really help me in bringing you more stories as they unfold. Thanks for watching, my friends. Thank you, and good day.
I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos. But